I spent 3 years as Derek's invisible stand-in. The day his first love returned, the CEO flicked a black Amex card at me. "There's $5 million. Get lost." I took the card, never even glanced at him, and instead walked straight toward the handsome COO at his side. "Victor, I hear you're single. The boss doesn't want me anymore. How about taking me on? I come with a lot of perks, guaranteed to satisfy." The next second, Derek crushed his wine goblet. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from. My name is Sophie. For 3 years I was Derek's dirty little secret, his stand-in. At the welcome home gala for his first love, Luna, he slapped a bank card onto the table in front of me as if shooing a mangy dog. "There's $5 million, scram." His tone was sub-zero, his eyes colder than a snowflake. All those mornings and nights we'd spent together were, in his mind, nothing more than a cheap transaction, not even worth a backward glance. Every pair of guest eyes snapped toward me, some pitying, some scornful, most just hungry for drama, the way people slow down for a roadside brawl. Luna nestled against Derek's chest, wearing the gentle smile of a winner. That face, 70% mine, was painted with innocence and fragility. Oscar-worthy. I didn't cry or make a scene. Hysterics are tacky. I simply bent, picked up the card, and straightened. $5 million for 3 years of my youth. Quite the bargain. Actually, I never looked at Derek. I looked past him to the man who'd stood behind him like a mountain all these years, his COO. Victor. Victor's suit was immaculate. Shoulders squared like a pine. Profile sharp enough to cut glass. Even in Derek's spotlight, he never faded. He carried his own lumens. For 3 years, he had driven me to and from the Malibu mansion. When I ran a fever, he was the one ordered to deliver the clinical little pills. I stopped in front of him, grinned wide enough to snap every jaw in the room, and said, "Victor, rumor has it you're unmarried? The boss is done with me. How about hiring me instead? I'm multi-talented. Satisfaction guaranteed." The hall went so quiet you could have heard a charm bracelet hit marble. Crack. Derek's wine goblet imploded in his fist. Crimson wine mixed with glass shards, dribbling between his fingers, looked painful. His usually composed mask split right down the middle. Shock and fury, twisting every feature. "Sophie, have you lost your mind?" Victor froze. Clearly he hadn't seen that curveball coming either. A flicker of surprise crossed his dark eyes, then morphed into something amused and thoughtful. He dipped his chin, voice steady and warmer than the wine dripping off his boss. "The honor would be mine." Without another word I slipped my hand through Victor's arm. The solid curve of muscle under worsted wool felt like a life raft. I didn't spare Derek one last look. I simply strolled out of the glittering cesspool I'd loathed for 3 straight years, my new boyfriend in tow. I'm sure Derek expected me to crawl back whimpering. He was wrong. Dead wrong. The game has only just begun. Victor bypassed any hotel and took me straight to his place. It was a 1-bedroom loft in Brooklyn, small but immaculate, smelling faintly of cedar. Potted herbs crowded the balcony rail, actual living green things. Compared to Derek's cavernous, ice-cold Malibu mansion, it felt like sunlight on skin. "Relax. I'll find you something clean to change into." His voice was gentle, no opportunistic moves, no awkward pauses. He set a steaming mug of chamomile tea in my hands, then produced brand new women's pajamas and still wrapped toiletries from a drawer. I raised an eyebrow. "Stocking lingerie for unexpected visitors?" He shrugged. "For my kid sister. She crashes here some weekends." The ceramic mug warmed my palms, the heat sliding all the way to my rib cage. For 3 years Derek's idea of affection had been clipped orders and impatient handouts. I'd forgotten what gentleness tasted like. "I saw everything," Victor said, breaking the quiet. "You deserved better." That single sentence stung my eyes so badly I almost spilled the tea. My phone suddenly shrieked. Caller ID, Derek. I swiped decline and hurled him into the blacklist. 2 seconds later Victor's own phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, accepted, and hit speaker. Derek's roar filled the room. "Victor, is Sophie with you? Put her on now." Victor's tone stayed flat, almost bored. "Derek, I'm off the clock. Sophie is my guest. I'm under no obligation to discuss her whereabouts with you." Silence, thick, stunned, then the line went dead with an angry beep. I stared at Victor. He gave me a small, reassuring smile. "Don't worry. I've got you." Right then I knew, bone deep, I'd made the correct choice. The calm he offered was something Derek couldn't purchase with all his millions. To make up for 3 lost years with his first love, Derek rented out the View, New York's most romantic revolving restaurant, for Luna's birthday. Coincidentally, Victor had booked us a table the same night. When Derek swept in with a couture-clad Luna on his arm, he spotted us by the picture window at once. His face darkened to thundercloud. Victor was quietly slicing my filet mignon, every motion precise precise and tender. I beamed at him, eyes, heart, everything filled with him. The bubble around us was airtight. No outsider could breach it. Derek strode over, looking down his nose at me, voice dripping condescension. Sophie, reduced to dating my subordinate the minute I cut you loose? So, the $5 million is already gone? He was certain those words would stab me and leave me squirming. Before I could answer, Victor dabbed the corner of his mouth with a napkin. Then he eased me behind him and met Derek's stare, calm and unflinching. Sterling, Sophie is my girlfriend now. We're spending our own money, so your concern is wasted. His voice was quiet, yet every syllable landed like a nail driven into oak. The word a girlfriend cracked across Derek's face like a slap. Seeing the tension, Luna tugged his sleeve with a sugar-sweet pout. Derek, let it go. Sophie has it rough. Let's not bother her anymore. She was auditioning for the role of generous, forgiving socialite, but the performance felt small, cloying, and fake. Derek glanced at Victor and me, our easy intimacy impossible to miss. Then he looked at Luna's manufactured glow, and irritation flooded his eyes. He had come to be the star of the night. Instead he'd become the punchline. He barely tasted a bite, each mouthful ashen, like chewing candle wax. His gaze kept flitting to our table, his expression darkening every time. Victor and I, meanwhile, enjoyed one of the best dinners of our lives. When we left, I could feel Derek's scorching glare drilling between my shoulder blades. I knew his retaliation would arrive soon, but the hotter his rage burned, the louder it proclaimed his defeat. The moment Derek snapped, his handsome mask split and the monster crawled out. He unleashed every contact, every lever of Sterling Corp power, to crush me. First, he froze every property and car he had ever gifted me. Big deal, I'd never wanted them anyway. Then he warned the entire industry, hire me and you declare war on Derek. He thought I'd come crawling back, broke and sobbing. He had no idea I'd done more than play stand in those 3 years. I had sat in on dozens of strategy sessions, invisible but listening. I'd soaked up everything like a sponge, studying tactics and balance sheets. The allowance he tossed my way became seed money. I saved every dime. With that stash I leased a tiny loft office in Manhattan's Soho and opened my own PR firm. When Derek heard, he reportedly smashed furniture so hard mahogany split. He couldn't process it. The discard was thriving instead of drowning. With nowhere else to aim, he turned the cannon on Victor. He summoned Victor, flung a termination agreement across the desk. Victor, final chance. Dump Sophie, crawl back, and I'll pretend none of this happened. His eyes were predatory, teeth bared. Refuse, and you're finished. Here and everywhere else. He was sure no man would trade career for woman. Victor studied the tirade without flinching. Quietly, he drew an envelope from his briefcase and laid it beside the agreement. Inside, a resignation letter drafted days earlier. Sterling, I resigned before you tried to use me against Sophie. Victor's tone was steady, each word forged steel. I'd rather build something ours than stay your workhorse. Victor's exit detonated inside Sterling Corporation. He wasn't just Derek's COO. He was the living wiring of half the firm's projects. The morning he cleared his desk, initiative stalled mid-breath. Derek discovered his empire had silently grown around Victor like ivy. Without him, commands dropped into empty corridors unanswered. Where the hell did Victor file the Q3 deck? Nothing's on the server. The London client only trusts Victor. Does anyone have his cell? Who can patch the supply chain code? Vic finished at 2 a.m. We're bleeding cash. Derek stormed, roared, shattered crystal awards. Chaos only widened. Across town, Victor and I waltzed into our future. He hadn't walked out empty-handed. Project intel, vendor lists, client rapport walked with him. The day after Victor's resignation, Derek's longtime rival, a Silicon Valley venture firm, called personally, dangling a VP crown and a 7-figure package. Victor declined on speaker while pouring me coffee. We pulled my breakup of $5 million and his savings, filed papers for Sunny PR Collective. I craft campaigns. He unlocks doors. Together we're a perfect circuit. Our first client, a mom-and-pop skincare brand Derek's team wouldn't return calls for. We spun a TikTok challenge. Booked micro-influencers. Watched servers crash from orders. Revenue multiplied tenfold overnight. Weeks later Derek, hunched over slumping sales reports, received the latest issue of Forbes. On the cover, Victor straight-shouldered in navy cashmere. Me in tailored ivory silk. Smiling like we own tomorrow. Headline, Startup Duo of the Year. From zero to hero in 30 days. Crack, Derek's fist splintered the antique desktop. Crimson-eyed, he stared at the photo, unable to comprehend how the woman he deleted was rewriting the rules. The subordinate, who had once obeyed his every command. How dared she, how dared they, join hands and climb higher than he? He snatched the magazine and ripped it apart like a madman, as though shredding the photo would tear the two smiling faces to bits. The penthouse office echoed with his caged animal roar. He had lost. crushed, ground to dust, nothing left. If Derek's days were bleak, Luna's good life was officially over. Mountains of corporate rubble buried him. He no longer had the energy to whisk Luna off on romantic getaways to the Hamptons or whisper sweet nothings under starlight. Day by day he grew colder, shorter, crueler. In one ugly fight, the words slipped out before he could stop them. If Sophie were here, this mess would be handled already. Sophie, Victor. Those two names stabbed Luna like splinters under skin. She refused, absolutely refused to accept it. The man she had waited 3 painful years to steal still carried someone else in his heart. At a glittering downtown gala packed with A-listers, Luna sauntered over to me, glass in hand, hips swaying just enough to turn heads. In a voice pitched for the entire room she cooed, "Little Sophie, I'm thrilled you finally found a career. But remember, darling, no matter how brilliant the resume, a woman still needs a man. Me, I have Derek's love, and that's plenty." The cluster of socialites around her picked up the cue, chirping agreement. They hinted, loud enough, that I was a gold digger who'd simply traded one boss for another, climbing men like rungs on a ladder. I studied her face, bloated with jealousy and vanity, and almost laughed out loud. This was the first love Derek had pined for 3 years. Such small vision, like a frog at the bottom of a well. I didn't bother getting angry. She wasn't worth the adrenaline. Smiling, I slipped a folder from my clutch and laid it on the linen-draped table. Inside, a freshly inked, 8-figure annual brand PR contract. I spoke softly, yet every syllable carried to the corners of the lounge. "Luna, you must be out of the loop. Our firm just pried this account away from Sterling Corporation." I paused, watching the blood drain from her face, then finished, crisp and clear, leaning on a man. Sometimes that only slows you down. A woman, in the end, has to rely on herself. Silence dropped so sudden you could hear ice melt in the silver buckets. Spectators flicked their gazes between us like spectators at a tennis match. Only the ball was Luna's pride. Stealing a flagship account from Sterling Corp in public. It was a slap that left Derek's face print on the marble floor. Luna swayed, lips trembling, no retort forthcoming. The humiliation she'd scripted for me had become her own public firing squad. She'd wanted to brand me a parasite. Instead, she'd exposed herself as an empty designer purse. Under the swarm of whispers and poorly stifled giggles, she finally cracked, covering her face before fleeing in a clatter of stilettos. I lifted my glass, clinked it softly against Victor's, and we shared a smile that needed no words. She had lost, and dragged Derek down with her. That gala scene was a scalpel, slicing away the last veil from Derek's eyes. At last he saw the truth. The woman he'd coddled was vain, foolish, hollow, and the woman he'd discarded was calm, razor-sharp, and radiant. He ordered an inquiry. What came back shocked him. After her runway exit, Luna hadn't cried. She'd beelined to a luxury boutique on 5th Avenue and maxed out his black card in a tantrum of shopping. I, meanwhile, had gone straight to the Soho loft office with Victor for an all-night strategy session, fueling the future we were building. The contrast rattled something loose inside him. Regret seeped through the cracks. He began to replay those 3 years on an endless loop. He remembered coming home at 3 a.m. to find a single lamp glowing in the Malibu mansion, a silent promise that someone cared. He remembered how Sophie had balanced his calendar, his diet, his mood, never a single loose thread. He remembered the fevered nights when she'd sat bedside, feeding him broth and aspirin, asking for nothing. He'd told himself those were merely stand-in duties, nothing special. Only now did he realize they weren't duties at all. They were his actual life, and he had thrown that life away with his own 2 hands. That night, buried under quarterly losses and Luna's hysterics, Derek locked himself in the penthouse office and drank until the Manhattan skyline blurred. Alcohol numbed reason, but magnified longing. With shaking fingers, he unlocked his blacklist and dialed the number he'd sworn never to call again and again and again. Each attempt banged against the same indifferent busy tone. He switched to voice messages, firing them off one after another. At first they were curses, her betrayal, her cruelty. Then the rage cracked, and what leaked through was pure, cracked-hearted sorrow. "Sophie, I was wrong. Please come back. I'll send Luna away, today. Tomorrow, she'll be gone. The title of Sterling Corp CEO was always meant for you. Marry me. Just come home. Sophie, please. I can't breathe without you." The once untouchable Derek sobbed like an abandoned child, reduced to voicemail. For the first time he understood he hadn't mislaid a disposable stand-in. He had lost his only safe harbor, the one light he would never find again. Sophie never heard a syllable of that drunken apology, because Victor answered her phone. She was asleep, phone charging on the living room console. Victor lifted it, irritated by the buzz, and played the rambling messages. When the last one ended, he hit callback. Face blank. Derek picked up instantly. instantly, hope splintering his voice. Sophie, is it you? You'll talk to me? Victor's reply was glacial. Sterling, she's asleep. From now on, stay out of her life. With that, he hung up. Clean, decisive. No. Goodbye. Then he blocked Derek's number so the man couldn't harass her again. I didn't even hear about the little episode until I woke the next morning. I simply smiled and said nothing. My heart didn't even ripple. For someone I had already erased from my life. Whatever storm of emotion he was in had nothing to do with me. And the blows for Derek were far from over. The following day, Sterling Corp's share price nosedived without warning like a roller coaster. Less than an hour after the opening bell it hit the daily limit down. A sickening shade of red across the screen. The whole market was stunned. Rumors flew everywhere. Soon the story broke. The most crucial overseas partner, the one that provided the core technology Sterling Corp lived on, had unilaterally torn up the contract. That same afternoon the supplier announced, in neon headlines, a brand new strategic alliance with a downtown startup called Sunny PR Collective. Sunny, of course, was the company Victor and I owned. Insert evil grin here. The overseas executive in charge had been Victor's best friend since Stanford, a blood brother level bond. The only reason Sterling Corp had landed the partnership in the first place was Victor's string pulling behind the curtain. Now Victor had yanked the floor out from under Derek. Classic own goal. Derek had not only lost love in spectacular fashion, the empire he boasted about lay in ruins like never before. He sat in his penthouse office staring at the fluorescent green crash bar on his monitor. Hands like ice, heart probably colder. Only then did the pain finally drill through his skull. The woman he'd pushed away was never dispensable. She had been the center of gravity of his entire existence. The world he once possessed, every glittering inch, now belonged utterly to someone else. Sterling Corp's crisis dragged on for a full month. In the end Derek had to sell off property after property, Hamptons Villa, Malibu Mansion, Manhattan Penthouse, to plug the hemorrhaging cash flow. The company didn't flatline, but it crawled away with its life and little else. A hollowed-out shell of its former swagger. When the smoke cleared, Derek asked to see me one last time. He chose the cafe where we first met in Greenwich Village. Nostalgia, I suppose. He looked 10 years older. Gray streaked his hair where none had been. All the arrogance in his eyes had burned out, replaced by exhaustion and a haunted sort of quiet. Are you doing all right? He rasped, voice like gravel at the bottom of a bucket. Very well, I answered, truth. No sugarcoating. A bitter smile tugged at his lips while he sipped his coffee. No doubt it tasted as bitter as his regrets. Does Victor treat you well? He treats me like his one and only, not like anyone's shadow, I said, the joy in my tone unapologetic. My words slid between his ribs like a stiletto. He lapsed into silence, eyes reddening, pride fighting tears. I'm sorry, Sophie, he whispered. I mistook a daydream for reality and lost the life that was real. I had no right to make you a stand-in or to hurt you like that. I studied him and felt nothing, no hatred, no pity. It was over. The page had turned. When I stayed quiet, he gathered what remained of his courage and lifted his gaze. A plea shimmering in it. I just need to know, during those 3 years, did you ever love me? He probably hoped a single yes would let him forgive himself. I looked straight at the man I once worshipped and obeyed, then shook my head, gently. Absolutely. Whether I loved you or not no longer matters, I said. What matters is that I love who I am now. And I love Victor, who sees me as his only, not a stand-in. I stood, didn't glance back, and gave him the dignity of that final exit. Our past snapped like a cut wire. From now on we travel separate roads, mountains and rivers between us. My future blazes bright, and there is no room in it for him. A year later Victor and I married on Sunset Cliffs in San Diego. Sun, sand, waves, and every friend who truly rooted for us, pure fairy tale. I wore white silk on my arm and Victor on the other. Certain no day could top this one. Mid-ceremony a courier handed me an anonymous envelope. Inside lay an equity transfer deed, 10% of Sterling Corp, signed over to me. No strings. Under the thick document sat a small card bearing 3 words in Derek's handwriting. Be happy. I smiled and offered the papers to Victor. He didn't take them. He simply studied me with that tender gaze. It's your trophy, your call. I passed the file to our VP. Liquidate it. Funnel every dollar into our new Sunshine Charity Fund. Victor took my hand, love overflowing in his eyes. Don't like owning a piece of his empire? I shook my head, stood on tiptoe, and brushed his cheek with my lips. I already have what I like, you. He folded me into his arms so tightly, I felt the beat of his heart. A man who truly loves you hands you the world. world. He doesn't try to buy back his mistakes with cold paper. Officiant's voice rang clear and buoyant. Sophie, will you take this man, Victor, to be your husband, in poverty or wealth, sickness or health, to love and cherish for life? I stared into the eyes that had written my name across their depths and answered, loud and sure, I will. Applause and cheers exploded around us like fireworks. In a quiet corner of the reception, a muted business channel flashed a headline, Sterling Corp ex-CEO stepped down today after repeated quarterly losses. On screen his face was ashen, shoulders slumped, a ghost wandering his own aftermath. My world, meanwhile, glowed gold. The man I love stood at my side. Some people, some chances, miss them once and they're gone forever. I, thank heaven, finally grabbed the happiness that is real. Thanks for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your opinions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. See you next time.